This poor character. Hello everyone, my name is Lucy, welcome back to my channel, and this character essay is part of a series of character essays on the Archie comics characters and how them and their relationships with others should be portrayed in Riverdale that would help dimensionalize them better while staying truer to the comics. Today in the hot seat we have none other than Reggie Mantle. I wore this "I'm so fly, I never land" shirt because Reggie would probably own this shirt too. And it's green, which works on a couple of levels because he's richer than Archie and he's also jealous of Archie a lot of the time. Reggie Mantle. How do I even begin to explain Reggie Mantle? Reggie Mantle is flawless. No, I'm just kidding. Reggie Mantle debuted in Jackpot Comics #5 in 1942. An enduring character, he appears across the Archie comics line and headlined the series Archie's Rival Reggie from 1949 to 1954. Other series include Reggie's Wise Guy Jokes and the 3-issue miniseries Reggie's Revenge. Reggie appears as a main character in the 2015 Archie and Jughead titles that launched the new Riverdale reboot. In 2016, it was announced that a 5-issue miniseries entitled Reggie and Me would be published as part of that launch. It was written by Tom DeFalco with art by Sandy Jarrell. Reggie's chief characteristics include his love of sarcasm and practical jokes, his extreme vanity, his athletic abilities, and his interest in dating multiple women. The most common accessories associated with Reggie are the mirror and the comb. A lot of jokes in the comics are about his vanity, earning him the nickname Reggie I Love Me Mantle. Reggie's appearance is very important to him. Reggie is very fashion conscious, often changing his clothes, appearance, or hair to keep in touch with the times. In one story, he's said to be even more concerned about clothing than Veronica, Riverdale's fashion leader. Reggie is the character who most frequently experiments with his hairstyle, having his hair being changed to match different trends of the times of the comics. Reggie is a naturally gifted and talented athlete who excels at nearly every major sport, including football, baseball, and basketball, including more obscure sports such as cross-country running and kung fu. Being the slimy character he is, he sometimes cheats if his skills aren't good enough to secure victory, and he often shows little team spirit. He also sometimes tries to win by finding technicalities in the rulebook. Because of this, he's sometimes also referred to as Rulebook Reggie. Along with Archie and Jughead, Reggie is one of the founding members of the band The Archies. Reggie is a bassist for The Archies and occasionally lead guitarist after Archie, and in true Reggie fashion, thinks of himself as more important and talented than any other member in the group. In the past, he's even hired groupies to scream his name during concerts. Reggie is seen as a prankster, often playing practical jokes on the other students of Riverdale High. His pranks are usually meant to embarrass his victims rather than physically hurt them, but it's not unusual for his jokes to backfire on him instead. Because of his quick wit and love of pranks, he hopes to land a career in comedy, but has been unsuccessful thus far. Reggie is insanely jealous of anyone else but him being in the spotlight and will sometimes deliberately cause them trouble to get what he wants. His quick, though sometimes rude wit has gotten him through many tough situations. On certain occasions, Reggie shows a kinder side where he will come to the aid of his friends or total strangers, although he prefers to keep such good deeds secret and hidden. In one comic, he has a close childhood friendship with an elderly woman named Mrs. Finkelhoff. In the rare occasions where Reggie is trying to help someone, the others usually think that it's for nefarious motives and are still wary of trusting him. This character. This character could have been so much fun to recreate in a live-action show. Could you imagine how amazing, annoying, funny, and provoking he could have been in this show? So much about him was thrown in the trash for this show. He is nothing like he is in the comics, and it is a crime. Reggie has always been one of my favorites to read about growing up, and his portrayal in this show is I kid you not, one of the most underwhelming things about it. And you know, with the amount of times they cop out of a bunch of other stuff, you know that is saying something. Well, first of all, I just have to say this because I have to get it off my chest. His status as a character was completely snubbed. Besides Archie, Betty, Veronica, and Jughead, Reggie is kind of, in the comics, the fifth main character and fifth member of the Archie and Friends gang. And in the show, they made that very clear that he was not, right out the gate. And they kind of gave that title to Cheryl. They kind of said, okay, she's the fifth person that you're kind of supposed to care about. Which, like I said in my Cheryl video, I kind of hated that because Cheryl's very much not a main character in the comics and she is an antagonist. In the show, they really switched around Cheryl and Reggie's roles because in the comics, Cheryl is a minor character and a recurring antagonist, and Reggie is, while he's still rude and mean, kind of in the group of characters that you're supposed to root for, and they all kind of hang out together, you know what I mean? So I don't know why they did that, but it was a bad move. And again, I talk about that a bunch more in my Cheryl essay video, so if you have not seen that, I will link it right up there. And what makes me really mad about Reggie's portrayal in the show is that he is one of the least constant characters in the show. The writers still don't know what to do with him. They never did. He, I feel like, has a different character, a different personality in every season. And this is just so ironic to me because in the comics, he is one of the most constant characters, if not the most constant and distinct character. You know exactly who Reggie is in the comics, and you can always rely on him to be that way. Again, I talked about this in my other character essays, but I feel like the rest of the main cast in Archie and Friends go through a couple of different phases depending on the decade of the release of the comic. Because the Archie comics have to obviously keep evolving so their tropes don't get too dated. But one great thing about Reggie is that a lot of his charm, a lot of what makes him funny is how horrible he is. So Reggie thinking and saying things in a kind of dated or vain or sexist or just childish way isn't really that much of an issue when you're trying to update and recreate new reincarnations of the Archie comics, because he's not really a character that you're supposed to like. He's one of those characters where you're entertained by the character but you wouldn't like the person in real life, like Alex P. Keaton or like the entire cast of Seinfeld. Let's talk about Reggie's portrayal in the show. In season 1, he was very much Archie's football rival, and that's it. That was really it. And, you know, I could get behind that, because that is something that definitely exists in the comics. Archie and Reggie have a very frenemy relationship. A lot of that is them competing at sports and Veronica's affection. But again, I wanted more. I wanted him to be more main cast, because he's so main cast in the comics. I wanted him to be funnier. I wanted him to have a rivalry with Jughead, too. I wanted him to have some kind of attraction with Veronica or with Betty. But they very much placed him in the background right from the get-go, which really disappointed me a lot. In season 2, he continues to be Archie's rival and kind of the Core 4's rival. In general, he runs against Archie and Jughead for class president, and he does that with Josie, which at the time I thought that was kind of a fun duo, but nothing ever really developed. Not a friendship or a relationship, which again, kind of disappointed about. In season 3, he was Veronica's simp. No, but in all seriousness, in season 3, I was disappointed more than I ever was before, because when they finally were giving Veronica and Reggie's relationship a chance, they never even gave it a chance. Reggie was Veronica's errand boy that she used for sex, and he just straight up let that happen. Which, again, is just so out of character for Reggie. Comic Reggie is not tied down by one girl, and if he was, he would not let her treat him like that. I'm gonna play a clip from my horrible things about Riverdale that not enough people talk about video right now that I touched on back then. Veronica is Reggie's boss. He does everything that she asks him to do, and then they start dating. It means more to Reggie than it does to Veronica. Veronica just kind of thinks of Reggie as a casual hookup and as an errand boy. And the minute that Archie comes back to Riverdale, who is the person that she would rather be with, she just expects Reggie to drop their entire relationship so she can be with Archie again. I'm sorry, if any man did that to a woman, it would be such an outrage. He would be one of the most disliked characters on the show, I guarantee it. But since Veronica did it, it's okay. Again, that double standard is one of the things that annoys me the most. It not only excused Veronica's horrible behavior as a romantic partner and as a business owner, it also threw away any glimpse of comic Reggie that the show ever had. Reggie is a lot of things, but submissive is definitely not one of them. In season 4, I don't even know what he did in season 4. He played football probably, and he did those tickle porn videos with Kevin and Fangs. And I do remember it was really cringy when he came in to talk to them about it. He was like, I hear you guys have something going where you're making some serious bank. Yeah, but then he does the tickle porn videos, and then he gets mad when Mr. Honey bans them from doing it. And in season 5, when they still had absolutely no idea what direction to take his character in, because they had done such a bad job developing it in the first 4 seasons, they decided, well, you know what, let's just make him work for Hiram Lodge. Why would they do this to him? Why? I admit that he's not a nice person, but that is not a career that he would ever be interested in doing. He's not smart in school, and he wouldn't want to be tied down like that and controlled by his master or whatever Hiram is to him. It just makes me mad. It makes me mad what they did to his character in this show. Makes me feel bad for Charles Melton and for Ross Butler, because they had no idea who their character is. I wouldn't. If I was given these scripts week after week, I would have no idea. Imagine if your character is one of the main characters in the comic book franchise that your TV show is based on, but right from the get-go they stick your character in the background, and throughout 4 seasons they don't develop your character at all, and they change your character a lot, and they never figure him out, that by season 5 they just say, screw it, let's make him a villain. It would suck. And that's exactly what they did to Reggie. Now again, Reggie in the comics is never a very nice person, but he's more of an anti-hero and rival. That's one of the reasons why his character is so interesting. Yeah, he's rude and he's self-obsessed and he doesn't really have any friends, but I like him because it shows that even though he can be rude and vain and cynical, that doesn't mean he's evil. While also showing that being rude and vain and cheating isn't gonna get you very many friends. Even though he's kind of in the group, he's never really in the group. Like Betty, Archie, Veronica, and Jughead, they are friends. And Reggie is their friend too, but he's not their best friend. And he does have some redeeming qualities that makes him a better fit for that 5th member position than Cheryl, who really has none. On to how his character should be portrayed in the show instead. Reggie, I actually wouldn't change too much about from the comics at all to this show. I think that his character in the comics would work in a teen drama. He'd be a pretty slimy character, an incredibly vain character, and that would make him I think, very, very funny. And I think that his character would really cause a lot of drama in the group and in the overall arc or cast. Now, there could definitely be a hypothetical envisioning of this show where he just stays that very vain, sleazy character and he doesn't have any character development throughout the series. And I think that that could definitely still work because, again, Reggie is quite a constant character in the comics in that way, and that means that he is always entertaining in that way. However, if they did decide to make him more main cast, I would like to see him have a bit of a character arc, and this is what I would want. I feel like a lot of Reggie's character arc would be tied to his love life and his social life in general. In the comics, like I said, Reggie is very much a womanizer. If he were to have an endgame in this show eventually, he should be undoubtedly committed to her. And in order for that to happen, he would need a significant character arc of becoming a better boyfriend and person. I also think a significant part of his arc would be learning how to be a better, more understanding, kinder friend. So Reggie's character arc would not really be about his personality, it would more be about how he treats people. Does that make sense? Because a big staple for Reggie's character in the comics is his vanity and self-obsessed nature. So it would be wrong for him to completely lose that. I'll give you another example. My favorite show ever, Frasier.
Please watch it if you haven't seen it. It's on Hulu. It is the best show.
But anyway, Frasier, I think kind of has a couple of applications to Reggie's character that I think are relevant. Throughout the series, Frasier and his brother Niles go through character arcs of becoming less snooty and being just kinder to people and treating people better. But they never really lose the fact that they want to look nice or they're really kind of vain, because that's just part of their charm. So I think that that idea could definitely be applied to Reggie's character arc in the hypothetical version of Riverdale that I am envisioning for all of these videos. I forgot to mention this, but if this arc were to happen, it would of course be very, very gradual. And whenever he is a more helpful friend, those moments would start out a lot more rare, a lot more scattered. And for a long time, or maybe even the rest of the time, every time it did happen, he would feel really pretty ashamed of it and afraid that it might ruin his reputation. So he would always be trying to deny and keep secret any good deeds that he does. And I could see a moment where he's like, well, I hate to admit it, but I think I might actually be nice. And that would be a lot like in the comics, so see, it all comes full circle. But yes, Reggie would have been such a fun character to adapt, and it is a shame what we got instead, which is hardly even a character. Now, like I said, Reggie doesn't have very many genuine friends, but there are a few people that I would like to note in this section. So here we go. Now, Reggie's best friend in the comics is, of course, Archie, even though Reggie's not Archie's best friend. Now, like so many relationships in these comics, Archie and Reggie are kind of friends and enemies. They are frenemies.
Because we're frenemies, we like disliking one another. Yes, we're frenemies.
Archie and Reggie are frenemies, and Reggie plays pranks on and harasses Archie all the time. He tries to make others believe that he despises Archie and couldn't care less what bad things come his way. But it was released in Archie Goodbye Forever Part 2 that although they have their differences, Archie is Reggie's best, albeit only, friend. Archie is also Reggie's rival for Veronica's affections, making them extremely jealous of each other, depending on who Veronica chooses to date at that time. Despite the rivalry, he and Archie are generally amicable and often spend time together pursuing dates or practicing athletics. Now again, in season 1, they made Reggie just Archie's exclusive football rival, and they kind of became friends at some point, but it never really felt genuine. You know what I mean? I think in the show it should go deeper than just a football rivalry between Archie and Reggie. In the show, I feel like they should still be friends and also rivals. I feel like they would be kind of fighting a lot and trying to outdo one another, but Archie is very effortless in outdoing Reggie in pretty much everything, and Reggie, you know, tries really, really hard to outdo Archie, and that kind of puts them on kind of the same level. I think that that would be kind of funny and interesting. As far as their friendship goes, I could see Archie being the kind soul that he is, trying to, you know, include Reggie in everything that the group is doing, like, yeah, come on, Reggie, you can do it with us, and basically Archie would keep giving Reggie, you know, chance after chance after chance to be a good friend and to make amends. And I could see Jughead being like, seriously, Archie, why does Reggie have to come? I really think in true teen drama fashion, these two kind of alpha males would have a friendship, but there would always kind of be an underlying rivalry of, okay, well, who's the big man on campus, Archie or Reggie? Some episodes that competition would be very clear, and other episodes they would just spend shooting hoops together and talking about girls. Like, I could definitely see them at the end of an episode, like, shooting baskets or, like, tossing a football around and having kind of a heart-to-heart about, you know, their girl troubles. You know what I mean? I really think that if friendship like that would work very well in a show like this. The next friendship that I'm gonna talk about is one of my absolute favorites, and it is one that we were totally robbed of, and that is Reggie and Jughead. Now, like I said in my Jughead video, Reggie often pranks Jughead, believing that he's lazy and dumb and making him a perfect target. However, Reggie often underestimates Jughead's smarts, causing most of his pranks on him to backfire. Reggie and Jughead are not just rivals, though. There have been a few instances where they are friendly towards one another and have shown to care about each other, even though they would never admit that there is anything other than hate between the two of them. Again, I said this in my Jughead video, this is a dynamic that I would really not change anything about. I think a rivalry where they're constantly bothering each other and pranking each other, but with an underlying friendship, is exactly how I would want these two in this show. They would be so annoyed with each other all the time. Jughead would always be bad-mouthing and clowning Reggie, and they would always be ranting about the other one to Archie. But it would be evident every once in a while that underneath it all, they do actually like having each other around. And those moments would be few and far between, but that would be what would make them so good. The last rivalry that I'm going to talk about is Dilton Doily. Reggie often teases Dilton Doily because he's jealous of Dilton's brains. It's evident that the two are not friends, despite the efforts on the rest of the gang's part to make them be such. Now again, this is a less significant one, but I still think that a rivalry between Reggie and Dilton could have been interesting, it could have been funny, and it could have revealed something about Reggie's character that isn't evident at face value. I think it would be interesting to see that under layers and layers of vanity that Reggie is insecure about his intelligence and he maybe wants to be smarter like Dilton or Jughead. Now I know that this section is not very long, but again, Reggie does not have very many friends, and the friends that he does have are rivals too. Reggie likes to chase girls, delighting in the pursuit. But he is usually not interested in being tied down to one girl and being in a committed relationship. Reggie likes to play the field and openly announces himself as a true practitioner of the art. He has expressed horror at the idea of having a serious relationship with one solitary female, saying that having one girl is like having one peanut or one potato chip. I know that's misogynistic, but again, part of his character's humor is because he's so horrible. Now, like in my previous videos, I have a few options for him to just date in the show, and then I have a couple of options for who he should end up with. Now, throughout the comics, Reggie has two primary love interests, Veronica Lodge and Midge Klump. We're gonna start out with Midge. Midge Klump, as many of you might know, is the girlfriend of Reggie's athletic teammate, the physically big and strong but not too bright Moose Mason, who is very jealous of anyone appearing to try to become involved with Midge. Because of Reggie's friendliness to Midge, he's often Moose's target, causing him to be beaten up on a regular basis. Midge has shown interest in Reggie herself, but probably only because she's trying to rebel against Moose's overprotectiveness. Reggie's relentless efforts to spend time with Midge without attracting Moose's ire are a running gag in the comics. Now, I think this would be really interesting. Midge was one of the most robbed characters in this show, and I think had she gotten a bigger role like she deserved, she and Reggie's relationship would have been really fun, teenager-esque, and would have spiced a lot up. I would have loved to see Midge and Moose's relationship kind of breaking off a couple of times because of his possessiveness, which again is a pretty dated character trait of his. And every time this would happen, she would run to Reggie, who is her second choice and kind of her perpetual side piece. Again, this would be in the earlier seasons where Reggie's a little slimier and he doesn't feel much remorse about pursuing a girl who's in a steady relationship. I could even see Archie and Jughead like trying to talk him out of it, like, Reggie, what are you doing? You know that Midge loves Moose. She's gonna get back together with Moose at some point. You know that. And then Reggie, you know, he'd be like, well, until that happens, I'm gonna be there for her. But you know this wouldn't be a selfless act on Reggie's part. It would be very selfish. He would only be there for Midge because he's attracted to her and because he expects something out of it, and because he likes the thrill and the excitement of dating Moose Mason's girlfriend. But again, I think that Reggie and Midge's relationship would be an interesting and kind of spicy thing about this failed teen drama. While she's not a main love interest, she is still a pretty prominent one, so next, let's talk about Betty. Reggie has been known to date Betty Cooper, not just because she is usually available, but because he sincerely likes her and cares about her. In one story, Reggie and Betty begin to date, and Betty discovered that Reggie was a gentleman on the inside. Now again, I said this in my Betty video, he is not like that with most girls, but he is with Betty, and there is really something to be said about that. Reggie and Betty frequently join forces to try to break up Archie and Veronica. In some stories, Reggie and Betty are shown to be a couple, even though their respective interests still lie with Veronica and Archie. In the Life with Archie series, where Archie marries Veronica, Betty and Reggie are seen as a loving couple, and it is hinted that they are thinking about getting married in that issue. Now again, if it was in the earlier seasons when they are still in high school, I would be totally ready for Betty and Reggie to date. I talked about this in my Betty video, but even if it's just for a few episodes, or if he is pursuing her for a long time and she finally gives in for a little bit, it would be a relationship that wouldn't last very long, but it would still be a sweet and interesting one. Like, imagine something like this happening in the show. Like, I could totally see that happening, and I would be into it. The last temporary love interest for Reggie I'm gonna talk about is Cheryl. Reggie did date Cheryl Blossom at one point in the comics. The two have very similar personalities, but their relationship did not last long by any means. Yeah. If Cheryl and Reggie were to date in the show, it would be obviously before she comes out, and it would be a hot mess, and it would not last long. Now I have two options for who Reggie would end up with in this show. One of them you are expecting, the other one you're probably not. So we're gonna start out with the one that you probably all saw coming, which is, of course, Veronica Lodge. In the comics, Reggie has a perennial crush on Veronica. The fact that she loves Archie makes Reggie very jealous, so he spends most of his time trying to outwit Archie and playing practical jokes on him. Veronica usually chooses Archie over Reggie because of his more agreeable personality, but has been known to go out with Reggie instead of Archie. Sometimes because Reggie has more date money than Archie, sometimes because Reggie is just more accessible, or sometimes because she would just rather go out with Reggie. In 2009, Archie Comics published a storyline following two possible futures: Veronica marrying Archie in one universe and her marrying Reggie in another. Now, I talked about this in my Veronica video, but Veronica and Reggie, I have always felt, reading these comics, are just a better fit than Veronica and Archie. I don't think that Archie could make Veronica happy in the long run, and I think that Archie and Veronica's relationship realistically wouldn't last for that long outside of high school. They just lead very different lifestyles, and I don't think that what they value is compatible. Alternatively, I do think that Veronica and Reggie have similar values in that area, however. They both want an exciting life where they don't have to be tied down. They both care about money and status. They both have similar senses of humor. And I'm not saying the person you end up with should be similar to you in order for it to work, because everybody's different, but again, I think that Veronica and Archie are incompatibly different, and Veronica and Reggie are compatibly different. So yes, if Veronica and Reggie's characters were done the justice that they are in the comics in this show, them ending up together would make very much sense. But if Veronica and Reggie can't end up together, which, let's be honest, that is a huge possibility at this point, who else would be good for Reggie? Who else could he end up with? Who else could he get committed to and be loyal to? Well, there is somebody else in the comics that he has a very soft spot for. Do you know who she is? Well, I'm about to tell you. Her name is Harper Lodge, and she is Veronica's cousin. I talked about Harper in my Veronica video, but I'm going to talk about her a little bit more now. Harper Lodge is a successful fashion designer, children's book author, and advice columnist. She's been in a wheelchair most of her life due to a car accident damaging both her legs. Though she usually lives on the other side of the country, Harper pays Riverdale a visit from time to time. Harper is the first Archie Comics friend with a disability, and I think, again, this could have been another cool way to advance the show. Now, at one point, one storyline does show Reggie falling in love with her, and she even seems to mend his rotten reputation quite a bit. They have a long-distance relationship for the most part, so there aren't many times that they're shown together. Now, Harper is the only Archie Comics character, Veronica included, that mends Reggie's reputation and actually makes him stop wanting to be a playboy. And honestly, that's huge! I actually do remember reading one of the comics where Harper and Reggie are dating, and it was really cute. Archie, was kind of scolding Reggie like, "Reggie, why are you dating Harper? She's Veronica's cousin. This is going to ruin my relationship with Veronica. It's going to ruin your relationship with Veronica. What are you doing? What is your angle here?" And Reggie's like, "I don't have an angle. I really like her." And I just think that's so cute. Now, my one objection would be because Harper is a very successful fashion designer, children's book author, and advice columnist, and she lives in New York. She's just an all-around gem, and Reggie is Reggie. My one objection to them ending up together would be, well, he's clearly not worthy of her. Like, she is a complete goddess, and he's Reggie. But again, like I've said before, if Reggie underwent a character arc throughout the series of him being kinder, of him being a better boyfriend and a better person at the end of the series, I still think that it could be a love story and an end game for the writers to pull off, if, you know, they were good writers. In the comics, it's evident that Harper inspires Reggie and brings out the best in Reggie. And I think that in the show, that would be very, very endearing as well. You know you're right for someone when they force you to be the best version of yourself.
You know you're right for someone when they force you to be the best version of yourself.
This is amazing.
And Reggie becoming the best version of himself at the end of this series would be so amazing. I can't even describe it. Reggie! Reggie's so fly, he never lands. Now, obviously, this character has existed for almost 80 years, so I couldn't talk about every single comic, every single reincarnation of his character. So if you have any questions about any other friendships, rivalries, relationships, anything about the friendships, rivalries, or relationships that we talked about, anything else about Reggie's character in both the comics or my envisioning of him for this show, please write them down below. I would be more than happy to answer those. Or you could tell me your preferred envisioning of Reggie. Obviously, mine is nothing like what the show went with instead. So please let me know yours if you have one. Reggie is such a fun and interesting character, and he was robbed so hard in this show. It's not even funny. I'm gonna end this video here. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please don't forget to like it and subscribe to my channel for more fun videos from me and for more eventual Archie Comics character essays. Thank you so much for watching again, and I hope that you have a wonderful, amazing day.